The DHS announcing that it has denied a Brown University doctor re-entry to the United States because of her support and sympathy for the terror group Hezbollah. That includes attending the funeral of Hezbollah's former leader. And now the elite school is telling international students and staff to avoid travel outside the United States.
A top doctor at Brown University deported for attending a funeral. A court order ignored. And the White House celebrating her removal. This is the shocking story of Dr. Rasha Alawieh, the woman at the center of a heated immigration and national security debate. But was she really a threat to the U.S., or was this just a political move? Let's break it down.
If you tell us when you apply for a visa, I'm coming to the U.S. to participate in pro-Hamas events, that runs counter to the foreign policy interests of the United States of America. It's that simple. So you lied. You came. If you had told us that you were going to do that, we never would have given you the visa. Now you're here. Now you do it. So you lied to us. You're out. It's that simple.
Dr. Rasha Alawieh is a nephrologist, a kidney specialist, and was an assistant professor at Brown University. Originally from Lebanon, she completed her medical training at the prestigious American University of Beirut before moving to the U.S. to further her career. By all accounts, she was an accomplished academic and doctor. A trip back home to Lebanon would change her life forever. In February 2025, Dr. Alawieh traveled to Lebanon to visit family. While she was there, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah passed away. She attended his funeral, a massive public event attended by thousands. But when she returned to the U.S., things took a turn.
Here's what DHS posted about Dr. Alawieh. That last month she traveled to Beirut. She attended the funeral of Hassan Nasrallah. He was, of course, a brutal terrorist who led Hezbollah, responsible for killing hundreds of Americans over a 4-decade terror spree. Alawieh openly admitted to this to CBP officers, as well as her support of Nasrallah. A visa is a privilege, not a right, and goes on to say what Rubio said. How does the government fare on this one?
I think very well. I don't think there could be a stronger case not to allow someone entry into this country if they've provided allegedly material support to a designated terrorist group. And I think all of the arguments about free speech are very dangerously and intentionally misleading. You do not have a free speech right to come into this country after attending the funeral of a terrorist leader that has participated in multiple attacks that have killed American citizens. You know, I'm so concerned with Brown University's response here. They are advising their own students not to travel, and they've released a statement saying they're concerned about the pipeline.
During a routine inspection at Boston Logan Airport, border officials reportedly found deleted photos and videos of the funeral on her phone. They accused her of supporting Hezbollah, an organization the U.S. has designated as a terrorist group. The government claimed that her presence at the funeral and the content on her phone raised serious national security concerns.
So this is Brown University. In a letter to students yesterday, it was reported widely that we understand that many in our community are feeling a great deal of uncertainty and anxiety. Out of an abundance of caution, we encourage international students, staff, faculty, and scholars, including U.S. visa holders and permanent residents or green card holders, to consider postponing or delaying personal travel outside the United States. So they put the chill on. I want to ask you one thing, though. So Alawieh, as I understand it, she did attend the funeral. She said that to DHS. But is attending a funeral considered material support?
Well, we don't know exactly what she did at that funeral, and I would argue, yes, it is. It's not a matter of free speech. You are flying to a foreign country to show your support for a designated terrorist group. And what's so troubling about Brown University's statement is how many people do they have at that school that they're concerned that they shouldn't travel outside the country. They shouldn't be concerned unless they're importing terror supporters as doctors and medical students. And how would this woman even take the Hippocratic Oath when her spiritual leader is Hassan Nasrallah, who has called for the elimination of Americans, who supports the killing of American civilians and Jewish babies, all for the sake of jihad? It's insane what's going on at this university. They should be concerned about the process by which they're vetting the people that they are bringing into this country.
I think the media coverage is also interesting. Look at these headlines. It's just a variety from PBS, NBC, and The Independent. You know, the headlines don't get you into the whole story, but a lot of people just read the headlines, and it says the professor was deported without explanation or despite having valid visa. And they're not getting, if you're just scanning the headlines, you might think that this is some sort of rogue operation. This was specific, and she had deleted the photos on her phone in anticipation of there being questions about it. Let me give you the last word.
Well, the truth is she wasn't so much deported as she was denied entry. She was never really allowed into this country. And the question is, what do we want this country to look like? Do we want a country? We cannot have a country if we have complete open borders and there's no vetting and we're allowing terrorist supporters in our country.
And that's when deportation proceedings began. As the case gained attention, a federal judge issued an order to halt her deportation while her case was reviewed. Legal experts and civil rights groups were outraged. They argued that she was denied due process and that her deportation violated the court's order.
Homeland Security said in a statement, a visa is a privilege, not a right. Glorifying and supporting terrorists who kill Americans is grounds for visa issuance to be denied. This is common sense security.
The professor's lawyer said, quote, "We're not going to stop fighting to get her back in the United States to see her patients where she should be, and we're going to try to make sure that the government follows the rule of law."
A federal judge had ordered her to stay in the country for a hearing, but then abruptly canceled it on Monday at the request of her legal team.
Meanwhile, debate is erupting over whether the Trump administration is defying court orders. The administration deported 250 alleged Tren de Aragua members to El Salvador this weekend.
President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act to carry out these deportations. A federal judge, however, had ordered that the planes should be turned around and for the administration to pause deportation initiatives under that act. The DOJ argued that they complied with the judge's written order since they didn't remove the 5 Venezuelans who had sued over their potential deportations. On the other hand, the DOJ also said that the judge's oral directive was not enforceable. The DOJ said that the flight had already taken off by the time the judge issued his injunction.
The district judge, James Basberg, said, "The idea that because my written order was pithier, it could be disregarded, that's one heck of a stretch, I think." The judge continued, quote, "Isn't then the better course to return the planes to the United States and figure out what to do than say, we don't care, we'll do whatever we want?"
Here's White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller responding to whether the administration violated the order.
The President of the United States and his administration reserve all rights under the Constitution to conduct national security operations in defense of the United States. The Alien Enemies Act, which was passed into law by the founding generation of this country, men like John Adams, was written explicitly to give the President the authority to repel an alien invasion of the United States. That is not something that a district court judge has any authority whatsoever to interfere with, to enjoin, to restrict, or to restrain any way. You can read the law yourself. There's not one clause in that law that makes it subject to judicial review, let alone district court review.
Meanwhile, students and colleagues at Brown University defended her, calling the government's actions extreme and unjustified. They argued that attending a funeral, even of a controversial figure, does not mean someone supports terrorism. The White House, however, had a very different take. Not only did they stand by the decision, but they celebrated it. In an official statement, they said, quote, "Bye-bye, Rasha," mocking her removal. They also made references to Trump's past at McDonald's to contrast it with Alawieh's Ivy League background, suggesting that elite credentials don't make someone above the law. Trump himself has been vocal on cracking down on individuals linked to terrorist organizations, arguing that national security must come first.
Whether Judge Basberg was correct on the law is largely irrelevant to whether the government is in contempt for willfully disobeying it. If the Trump administration knew there was an order from a federal judge and then willfully violated it, that is the end of the analysis. Meanwhile, Senator Chuck Grassley wrote on X, "Another day, another judge unilaterally deciding policy for the whole country, this time to benefit foreign gang members. If the Supreme Court or Congress doesn't fix, we're headed toward a constitutional crisis. Senate Judiciary Committee, take action."
But critics say this was less about security and more about political messaging. The case of Rasha Alawieh has sparked intense debate. Was this a necessary national security measure, or was it a case of government overreach? Supporters of the deportation argue that anyone attending the funeral of a known terrorist should face consequences. But others believe that this sets a dangerous precedent, where even being near a controversial event can lead to exile. Some point out that many Americans attend events linked to controversial figures, but don't face similar consequences. So was this really about security, or something else? The case of Dr. Rasha Alawieh raises serious questions. Should the government have the power to deport someone based on their presence at an event? Did she get a fair legal process? And what does this mean for other immigrants in the U.S.? At the end of the day, this isn't just about one person. It's about the balance between national security and individual rights. And in a politically charged environment, that balance is more fragile than ever. What do you think? Was this deportation justified? Or was it an overreach? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into current events. See you next time.